If the Minnesota Wild are going to navigate this stretch without Kirill Kaprizov, that's the blueprint. Good goalie play, timely scoring, and giving the extra effort. The Minnesota Wild pick up a 3-1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. Pretty nice job by everybody up and down that lineup. We got a fourth line goal. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Gus's return to form, and we'll talk about a couple of key details that led to the Minnesota Wilds picking up the win here tonight. It's postcast time.
You are Locked On Wild Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Minnesota Wild pick up a 3-1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it is officially Locked On Wild postcast time. Let's dive into the details. The Wild get a fourth line goal, something we've been clamoring for a long time. A Marat Khusnutdinov goal, even better, that we finally get a little bit of offense out of Marat. We'll talk more about him coming up in a little bit. You also get a power play goal, limit the Maple Leafs to one power play opportunity. Filip Gustavsson has a complete rebound to form here in this one tonight. And all in all, it just was a much better effort than we had seen over the last few games. And it's pretty clear that John Hynes was right. The form that the Wild need to win games was there all along. They just had to find it. And they did. It was a great job by the Wild of doing all the little things, because quick zone exits is not going to be something that it's not something that shows up in the box score. But that, I felt like, was a big determining factor in the win here tonight. Quick zone exits. This is a Toronto Maple Leafs team that boasts William Nylander, Mitch Marner, and Austin Matthews, amongst others. They've got really good offense. If you allow them second and third opportunities, it can really snowball. As we saw in the third period, Toronto, once they scored, they started to really find their game, and it took a pretty good effort by the Wild defense to keep them off the board there down the stretch. To be fair, Filip Gustavsson had a lot to say about that as well. So this is the formula. A lot of block shots, but I think the fact that the Wild did a good job of just getting the heck out of the zone, limiting Toronto to one shot and dones for quite a bit of the game. That's a good indicator that they were much better tonight. The passes were crisp. The passes were much shorter tonight, and actually were looking to that intermediate target as opposed to those home run shots. And it is odd that you lose Kirill Kaprizov and you go right back to playing the style that the Wild were playing early on in the season. I think the reason for that, because you're always going to be better with Kirill Kaprizov in the lineup. But I think what happens when Kirill isn't is that there's no safety blanket for the team. He's going to step up in a critical situation and get us a goal, get us a point. There's none of that. This group of players, they have to figure it out themselves. One of them has to step up in those critical moments. Marcus Foligno at the end of the game with the empty netter to seal the win. Players without Kirill Kaprizov in this lineup, these guys have to step up and make plays. And I think that's why we see this team play a little better without Kirill in the lineup, because I think they know that. Now, why they don't do that with Kaprizov in the lineup is, that's a question to ask, but they're always going to be better with him in the lineup. And it's just a matter of getting back to that previous form that led to the Wild getting to this point. Another road win. The Wild just continue to 19-5-3 on the road, and now 30 wins on the season. They're 30-21, and this is the blueprint. Before we get to everybody's comments, we're tweaking the format here a little bit, just to try to make it more of a structured postcast. So I'm just going to continue to dive into some of the things that I saw that we liked. Let's start with the defense and the goaltending. Toronto had a expected goals of 2.4 for the course of the game. So again, considering the options that Toronto has at their disposal, the Wild did a really good job of limiting what Toronto was able to do on offense. And Filip Gustavsson, 1.4 goals saved above expected. Also really nice. It was a great rebound and return to form for Filip Gustavsson because he was on a little bit of a stretch of poor goalie play, but he certainly found it in the game here tonight. Let's dive further into what we saw. Unblocked shot attempts for the Maple Leafs. They had a total of 47, 39 low danger, 6 medium danger, 2 high danger. So 47 total unblocked shot attempts, just 8 of those medium and high danger. And if we further that, take a look at the heat map. We're bringing the heat maps back here in 2025. Take a look at this heat map of where the shots came from. Toronto is on the right side of the screen, and for the audio crowd, Toronto did have a goal right up in front. That was the William Nylander goal that was scored on kind of an odd man rush and just a quick pass from behind the net to Nylander right out in front. Bang, bang play. But beyond that, the middle of the ice, between the face-off circles, the Wild did a good job of keeping that portion of the net clear. And if you look at the Wild side of things, on the left, a lot of their shot attempts came from the face-off circles and in, but also in that middle area between the face-off circles. This is what we like to see. Offensively, this is what you want for the Minnesota Wild. And if you can keep that middle area of the ice clean, that's a good thing to have on defense as well. So the Wild defensively did a great job of keeping things clean in front of their goalie, and Filip Gustavsson did a great job of stopping the puck too. It's a nice give and take between the two. Fourth line, I tweeted it out after the first period was done. If the Wild are going to navigate this stretch without Kirill Kaprizov, it's all hands on deck, and you got to get contributions from up and down the lineup. And what does the fourth line do? They respond with one of their best games of the season. Marat Khusnutdinov with the goal, but what I also liked is there was another instance in which Khusnutdinov got the puck in with I think it was in the second period. He had the puck and he came flying into the zone and absolutely let it rip on net. And that just is offensive aggression that we have not seen from Khusnutdinov in quite a while. So he gets the goal, but then just looking to push the play and looking to get a shot on goal. More of that, please. More of that from Marat Khusnutdinov. He can be a player that gives you a little offensive upside too. It's all about just having the confidence to do it. And if he is able to add a little offense to that fourth line, that makes all the difference. And if those guys, Jakub Lauko and whoever else is on the fourth line, if those guys can add just a little bit of offense here and there, that's That's what we're looking for. We're just looking for those third and fourth line combinations to give the threat of offense. You're not going to have scores every night from them, but can they give you goals here and there? That's the key. Some of the other impressive performances in this one tonight, we did get the Matt Boldy, Matt Zuccarello, and Joel Eriksson Ek pairing at the top line, which I thought was kind of interesting. But I thought that line, even though they didn't score, I thought they did a good job of pushing the play and pushing the tempo. Second line is an interesting one as well. I'm not married to that combination, although for whatever reason, Marcus Foligno and Marco Rossi have chemistry together. I don't understand it. I never will. But it's all about just putting combinations together that can give you threats offensively and getting different players to step up on a nightly basis. It was Khusnutdinov. It was Foligno. The Wild got another defensive goal tonight in Jared Spurgeon on the power play. Although that's an interesting goal for Spurgeon because it was deflected by a Toronto player. So bad luck for the Maple Leafs, who also hit the post twice tonight. And look at it this way. You held William Nylander, Austin Matthews, and Mitch Marner to one combined point on 9 combined shots. That's a pretty good job defensively against a very dangerous team. I mean, I know they're playing a little bit of a different style of hockey under Craig Berube, but those guys are still dangerous. They're still capable of just absolutely lighting it up. And the Wild held them in check for a large majority of the night. I like to point it out just because Ryan Reeves with a solid 4 minutes and 47 seconds of ice time in this one tonight. I just like to point that out because reasons. 4 minutes, 47 seconds of time on ice. Solid day's work. Solid day's work for a guy making $2.5 million a year. Nicely done. Filip Gustavsson, 32 out of 33 in saves. The Maple Leafs did have one power play. They only had 2 shots on goal on said power play. Another good job by the defense here tonight. But look at this. Look at the minutes spread for the defense here tonight. Brock Faber led the D with 24-49. Jake Middleton had 24-19. Jared Spurgeon had 20 minutes, 18 seconds. John Merrill played 17 minutes. Declan Chisholm played 17 minutes, 30 seconds. And Zach Bogosian played 16 minutes as well. You're not having to overload anybody. And I've said it before. I know it's not what many of the audience wants to hear. But when John Merrill and Zach Bogosian are playing and not costing you goals, there you can lean on them a little more. They weren't craters out there. They were both a +1. So you can lean on them for 16 and 17 minutes. And Declan Chisholm, I know he got scratched, but I thought he had a nice rebound here tonight. That's why those guys keep getting played, is they have had far more games where they are just they're not costing you compared to the last couple of years. Like that's the main difference, is that third pairing is not blowing games like they did last year or the year before or the year before that or the year before that or the year before that. It's like an offensive line. If you don't hear their name, then they're doing their job. So all in all, up and down the lineup, it was a pretty effective combination for the Minnesota Wild here tonight. There was a lot of good effort given by pretty much everybody on the roster. It seemed like everybody had a contribution here tonight. Wild did get absolutely dotted in the faceoff circle again, but that's not a surprise. It's something that seems to happen quite often, and the Wild still win games. So, I don't know. Figure it out. The Wild get absolutely caved, and Marco Rossi goes 6 of 7. I think Urban said in the chat here earlier, this has been just an absolutely bizarre NHL season. Weird things happen on a nightly basis. But, hey, we'll take the win. That's really all you can do at this point. We're going to get to the comments because we got a couple doozies that we'll get to here tonight. But all told, a solid win for the Minnesota Wild to start the post-Kaprizov apocalypse, at least for the next 4 weeks. And that improves them to 2-0 on the road trip. Let's give some credit to John Hynes, too. Like, every time we have had something that would fold a team, it seems like he's able to just get a little more from them. Just squeeze a little bit more out. And you stomach the news that Kirill Kaprizov's going to be out for 4 weeks. And John Hynes says, we just got to get back to what we were doing. And they do. And bingo. All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll come back. We'll get to your comments. Let them fly, because we've had a lot of Kirill. We've had a lot of Capri's comments. We'll get to that. We'll talk about it all. We got a lot to go as we continue our postcast here tonight. The Minnesota Wild win by a score of 3-1 over the Toronto Maple Leafs. More on the way after this. Today's postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Today's postcast is also brought to you by Game Time. Attending NFL playoff games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. Whether it be watching the Minnesota Vikings at US Bank Stadium. Last time I went to a playoff game was at the Metrodome, so it tells you how long it's been since I've been to a Vikings playoff game. But hey, whether it be the Vikings, the Wilds, the Twins, the Timberwolves, playoff games are always an unbelievable experience. And Game Time can help you live that Game Time experience and make it easy as possible. Easy as pie to get tickets. Game Time also has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I recently used Game Time Picks to find tickets for it was an opportunity to see the Minnesota Timberwolves in action. And I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal was especially impressive, offering the best value for that game. The app has great features like seat views before you buy and all-in pricing with no surprise fees at checkout. Made the experience incredibly smooth and reliable, plus the one on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back. The Minnesota Wild pick up a 3-1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs to improve to 30-17-4 on the season. Or as we like to say, what do we like to say every dayers? 30-21. Because overtime losses are losses with a point. That's it. That's all. Let's start with Kieran. Marat on the stat sheet. Stats for Marat. I like that. That has been needed for a long time. A long time. We've been waiting for some level of production from that fourth line. And as I said after the first period, if the Wild are going to navigate this stretch without Kaprizov, they're going to need that production. They're going to need that production to be able to help take them there. And you get a fourth line goal, but not even that, just the way the fourth line played tonight. A nice little change up to add to the mix and to just give you the ability to play four lines against a team like Toronto. And Toronto, old Craig Berube behind the bench was like, okay, the Wild fourth line on the ice, bet. We're throwing Matthews, Nylander, and Marner out there. Whoever it ends up being, we're going to take advantage of that. And John Hines said, oh, not so fast. We got you. So having a fourth line that can give you a scoring threat allows you the opportunity to play four lines and roll four lines and not have to be sweating potential matchups on the ice. So great job by the fourth line tonight. I'll go to Swiffer T, Wet Jet Mop. First and fourth line had really good forecheck tonight. Monster night from Foligno. Glad he got a goal in the end. He's one of the guys that I think if Foligno can step in and fill some of that offensive void, and, Foligno is not relied upon to be a goal scorer on this team per se, but he does have some good offensive metrics. And if he can just provide a scoring spark here and there, that's going to be a big boost as well. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be one person every night. It needs to be somebody who does it, whether that be 3 or 4 different people. It just needs to be it needs to be somebody that does on a nightly basis. The dump and chase wasn't just a whip around, but actually chasing the puck and holding on to the puck. And this is something that John Hines talked about, in that if you're taking the easy way out and saying, well, I can just dump the puck in, but I don't have a chance to go get it, then we'll just throw it behind the net, and the other team's going to get to it, but it'll allow us an opportunity for a change. That's an effort thing. You've got to be willing to put in that extra work to go get the puck after you send it in, and that was sorely missing over the last few losses before the Chicago game. John Hines got that corrected, and it was much better in this game against the Maple Leafs. There was actual puck pursuit, and there were different guys that were doing a great job of going and getting the puck handler. Effort. That's all effort stuff. And the fact that was better tonight, you're going to need it against a team like Toronto, and it was good here this evening. So I should just watch away games for the rest of the season. Cool. I will never understand. This is truly one of the most bizarre seasons that has unfolded for the Wild this year. Get off to the incredibly good start, and the injuries catch up, and yet the team just continues to rack up road wins. But they're under 500 at home. I don't get it. I don't understand. I am trying to find. I'm going on the quest to try to find the answer and the reasoning. When I do, we'll get to the bottom of it. Because it's like it's easy to point and say it's just a mindset and a mentality thing. I don't know. I really don't know what's causing it. Does X still look off? You know, I think he still doesn't look 100%, but I think there are ways to manage that. He clearly is. It's clearly about pain management at this point. Because if it was a situation like Kirill, where it's like, hey, we got to clean this up now, because it's substantially impacting his game, I feel like they would have done that already. So for Ek, it appears to be a matter of just pain management, which explains why some nights he looks better than others. Still don't think he's 100%. I don't know when he'll get to 100%. I guess we'll find out when he does. But he's going to be another guy that the Wild will need to be on his game during this Kaprizov-less stretch. The Capriz that I can't come up with a name for it. They're going to need him to be one of those guys that kind of elevates. So if he can be as close to 100% as possible to do that, that would be nice. But that explains, I think, why his performance seems to go up and down. But I have nothing to go off of with that. I just know what we've been told is that he's dealing with an injury. So at this point, I'm trying to play doctor, which I clearly am not one. But let's go to Clay. Attaboy Gus needed that. It was a rough stretch for Filip Gustavsson before this game tonight. If we look at the numbers that Gus had put up over his last few starts, now he did rebound to form against Chicago. He only faced 20 shots in that game because Chicago only had 5 shots through the first 2 periods. They looked hilariously bad. But before that, it was a stretch of 5 straight games in which Filip Gustavsson allowed 4 or more goals. That included the St. Louis game where he got pulled for giving up 4. Then he gave up 6 to Colorado, 4 to Vegas, 5 to Edmonton, 4 to Utah. And now in the last 2 starts, he's given up 3 total. So he's starting to get it figured out a little bit. But I think the defense has improved their performance over the last 2 games too. It's symbiotic. It's a give and take between the two. And if the defense can help, then that is going to help out the goalies too. They both have to be good. But if you have bad defense, you're going to be asking a lot of your goalie. So when both are good, then the Wild are really good at limiting teams. Do we trade for someone like Dylan Guenther, Zuccarello, and Lambos, and maybe a pick, free up more cap space, get younger and more skilled for next year with Kaprizov out? The trade deadline is going to be very interesting. I'm just going to put out there right now, it's going to be very tough for the Wild to do anything with the current cap situation that they're in. If you're going to make any sort of a deal, it feels like somebody has to come off the roster. And I just don't think Bill Guerin has shown the willingness to do that at this point. Now, could that change by the trade deadline? Sure. But I just don't get the sense that any of the guys that Bill Guerin has signed to this team are going to be on the block. And Zuccarello is still playing very good hockey. So you subtract him, that's impacting the offense. It just is going to depend on what shakes out between now and the deadline. If you can find somebody to be a broker and take on a 50% retained portion of a salary, a team like the Anaheim Ducks, who has just limitless cap space and is probably so bored right now that they'd be willing to take on salary for a 5th-round pick. If you can find a team to do that, then that opens your options for making a deal. But it also feels like somebody's going to have to come off of the roster too. And I just don't see that happening, but that's not to say that it won't. At this point, I see maybe a move being made at the deadline, but that's going to be probably about it. Let's see this OT scenario. Each team gets 1 point for a tie. The OT point is basically an extra for the new game they tack on to the end. My thoughts on what needs to happen to take care of the overtime point is regulation wins are worth 2, overtime wins are worth 1. And you if you lose the game, you don't get anything. If you get the game to overtime, you get 1 point, and that's an opportunity for the team that was losing in regulation and tied it to potentially steal one. But the overtime point, frankly, is just allowing such mediocrity to get into the postseason. And it's I don't know. You got to get rid of it. You just have to. Who do we rent from Los Preds? Well, let's just take a peek, shall we? The keys here. Oh man, the Nashville Predators have just a gross amount of space. Key thing here is your best options are going to be players in the final year of their deal, which includes Gustav Nyquist, who's in the final year of his deal. He, however, is having a bit of a down season. And beyond that, the only other player that is in the final year of his deal is on injured reserve, and that's Luke Evangelista. It just gets way too complicated to try to add players to this roster that have money on the books beyond this season. It just is creating a lot of work. And Gustav Nyquist, he's got 9 goals in 47 games, 20 total points. So he's not having as good of a season as he did last year when he, I think, was right around 90 points. I'm lukewarm on a guy like Gustav Nyquist. I still would have loved to have him be on the team as opposed to Marcus Johansson, but I don't know. The other part of this for the trade deadline is you want to be picking up somebody that is playing well as of late, as opposed to somebody who is kind of slumping. Because then if you're trying to ignite your team and you bring somebody in that's cold, then you're having to try to ignite them too. Jakub Lauko is so good at the dump and chase. Speed kills in a good way. Billy G and Hines on K-Fan recently sounded like no big trades happening soon, but they've been wrong before. I think it just depends. It's going to require a broker to make a deal happen. You really can't retain much salary at all. So if they can get somebody to take on 50%, like I said, the Anaheim Ducks for a 5th round pick, that'd be a route to go. 18-0-0 and leading after the second period on the road is preposterous. I'll do some digging for an upcoming episode, but that has to lead the league. You're not expected to play like that on the road. You're expected to win 50% of your games on the road. If you're lucky, if you're a good road team. And the Wild are winning, 75% of their road games? It makes no sense. It's frankly, it's a unicorn. The Minnesota Wild on the road are a unicorn this year. That's how rare this type of performance is on the road. This team makes no sense this year. Home field advantage, nope. Losing record at home. Won't be good because you're missing your best players, nope. Play the best hockey they've played all year. No predictability in anything they do this season. Just getting back to some of the Ek conversation, struggling in the dot as well. Looks like that position is uncomfortable for him to be in, which leads me to believe we're trying to figure out what the injury is for Ek. And especially in that instance, kind of makes you believe it's like a core injury, right? And if you're trying to bend down to do faceoffs, that would seem to be uncomfortable. Again, I'm not a doctor. Like that should be a meme, is just my face with not a doctor. So speculation only gets you so far, but that would track that it's painful to bend down and do faceoffs. But this is something too. Do you think some of these guys need to be told to bow out of the Four Nations? I'm leaning away from Filip Gustavsson being injured as opposed to just being kind of in a rut, which it seems like he's starting to dig himself out of. So if he does the Four Nations thing, I really don't care there. The two that I'm worried about are Joel Eriksson Ek and Jonas Brodin. Jonas Brodin has not started skating, and the damn thing starts next week, is it? It starts on the 9th. So it is just over, it's like a week and a half away. I would prefer that Joel Eriksson Ek stay out of it. But part of the equation here too is good luck telling players to not take part in stuff like this. It'd be really nice for him to get a little 2-week break, but I just don't know. You're going to have to tell him you don't want him to play, and I don't know if he's going to take too kindly to that. I'll put money on I could see this, actually, because I'll maintain that I think the entire reason that Yakov Trenin was brought in was as Marcus Foligno insurance. And Marcus Foligno has not missed a game this year as of yet. Knock on wood. Don't worry, I did. I could see that being something that they do, because John Hines has scratched him a couple of times, and I don't know. Don't keep an eye on this. Keep an eye on the Trenin possibility, because he does not have trade protection. So that's an interesting one. Capri's Apocalypse is a good one. Who isn't having a down season for the Predators? That's very fair. We should go get Zachary LaRue from the Preds. He would not make it to the first practice because I think Marcus Foligno and Jake Middleton would just say, "Hey, come here. Let's show you to your locker so we can stuff you in it." JT for Rossi and find a broker. Next year they will have identical salaries. Nah. I'm perfectly fine going forward with Marco Rossi at this point. But I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to JT Miller, but that situation in Vancouver is also a highly volatile mess. And JT Miller is making like 8.5 for the foreseeable future. Miller is making $8 million flat until 2030, and he also has a full no movement clause. So he would have to want to come here. And I don't know. Maybe he would, but I don't know. Now, Brock Besser, on the other hand, he has a modified no trade. He has a 10-team no trade list. He's making $6.65 this year. And then he is an unrestricted free agent. But let's bump this again. Going to have to trade a pick or a prospect, fourth line guy. That seems like the most likely route for a trade. Any deal that would need to be done would require the team that is currently holding the player and a broker. You have to take on about 90% of the salary between a broker and the team that holds the current player. So it's going to require a pick to go do that. And that's really your only option at this point. So if you can find somebody to do that, then go that route. But I don't know. I think it's just... I think it's pretty likely that they're not going to do much, if not... They're going to do little, if nothing, at the deadline this year. There just are too many... So too many moving parts for that to happen. So time will tell. What about Zeegs from the Ducks? Trevor Zegras, number one, is hurt, I believe, or at least he was. Zegras is hurt. Actually, looks like he may have come back to the lineup, but he's hurt. He has not had a good season offensively for the last couple of years, and he is a crater defensively. Yeah, if it were a situation that he's a good player in a bad team and just needs a change of scenery, that would be one thing. I think this is just kind of who he is. If he can stay healthy, he can give you 20 goals, maybe 50 points, but he can't stay healthy. And like I said, the defensive numbers, he's not great. So I would say probably not on Trevor Zegras. Wake me up when Four Nations is over, and don't update me on the Four Nations. I'm still debating on if that's even going to be covered. Alex and I may talk about it on the 2 Mondays that it's going on, but I'm going to be honest, folks. I am very looking forward to a break from NHL games over the course of the Four Nations, so that I can so that I can hibernate for a little bit. And I don't know. I don't get the sense that I don't know if it's going to be that compelling. I guess we'll see. Heard anything on a new Kirill contract? Talks going good or bad? Feels like if we trade Zuccarello, he'd be more apt to leave. I agree. I think you make a move like that, and that's going to sour him on this. But I don't have any reason to suggest that. I haven't heard anything per se on the Kaprizov contract talks. I don't think anything this year has swayed his thinking. If anything, look at what you have coming up in the pipeline. You got Danila Yurov, you've got Zeev Boyum, you've got Juracek, who has shown promise that can take a spot defensively next year. The Wild have some good prospects that are going to be playing big roles on this team. I would think that would be exciting to be a part of. And if you're Kirill, this team showing that they are capable of winning without Kaprizov, I think that's another thing that he's looking at too. At the end of the day, there are few teams that are going to be able to, without making major moves, there are few teams that are going to be able to add him into the fold. The New York Rangers are a mess right now. They would have to make major changes in order to be able to fit him in on their books. The Florida Panthers cap situation is pretty tight. They would have to make some big moves in order to fit a guy like that in. If Kirill is going to go to a West Coast team, it's going to be the Anaheim Ducks or the San Jose Sharks. And does he want to do that? Do you want to go to one of those two teams? Because even as good as he is, the team that you're putting together around him is probably still going to stink. So if he really wants the money, which he's not going to be able to get as much from them as he would be from us, that's the big factors. Does he want the money? Does he want a good team around him? As Urban points out, the Rangers do have a lot of money coming off the books, but they still have the albatross contracts. Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, Trocheck, Lafreniere just signed a massive extension. Those contracts are still on the books. Adam Fox is making $9.5 million. Oh, and you've got Igor Shesterkin making 11.5. There's a lot of bad money on those books. So that's something that I'm sure Kaprizov's camp is keeping an eye on too. But if you look at the teams that have the money to be able to offer right now, it's Anaheim and San Jose. Does he want to be an Anaheim Duck? Do you want to be a teammate with Trevor Zegras? I guess we'll see. I'd trade Kaprizov to Philly for Michkov and Konechny. Danny Briere is hanging up that phone. Michkov, they are looking at Michkov as the next Gretzky. Is he going to be that? Probably not. But that's how well, don't tell that to John Tortorella, because Tortorella is equal opportunity scratch with that Flyers roster. He'll scratch anybody. He'll scratch. If Kirill Kaprizov played for the Flyers, Kirill would get scratched. That's Michkov's not going anywhere. Will there ever be a professional athlete who would take a little bit less so that the team can be more competitive? As has been pointed out in the comments, Tom Brady turned that into a business. He turned that into a cottage industry. And it depends. If you have that, as the NFL does, where you have a rookie contract, a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, then that affords you the opportunity, and they're really good. That affords you the opportunity to put money into the rest of the roster. Let's say Kirill Kaprizov said, I'll play for 10. Or I'll play for right around 10. That would certainly be a large discount. But as the salary cap goes up, these guys see the dollar signs and they just are like, I just want to cash in. Look at Mikko Rantanen. Mikko Rantanen wanted $14 million. It's a lot of money. So it depends. It's going to depend on where Kirill feels like he can win and where he feels most comfortable. The money is a huge factor too. It's business. It's business. Tonight's postcast, by the way, brought to you by my new favorite, Garage Beer. Figured that it'd be a good time to have one with a nice, solid Minnesota Wild win here tonight. Agent and GM can't even begin negotiations until July. Good point. Key point. They'll get that started. See, this is why I like this audience, is because I show stuff off like that and people are just right to it. Like it's, yeah. I had not tried these until the last couple of months. Absolutely dynamite. So that's the new official beverage of Wild wins, unless they're late games, because I gotta get up and do the early bird thing. Genuinely think Kirill will be fine with 11.5 to 12. Well, every million that he doesn't take is $1 million that can be spent on another bottom six player that can provide grit and depth. I'm kidding, of course. It won't be announced. There's been a lot of rumors, and it won't be announced until after the season. Like, let's just put that out there right off the bat, because the next season's cap is not. Trav has mentioned this to me several times, so I've got it ingrained now. Next season's salary cap will not be decided until after the revenue from this year has been tallied up. There are rumors that because of this escrow payments being stopped, that people think that the revenue is going to be going up quite a bit. That'd sure be nice, because then that would be some slush money that the Wild had not anticipated having. But we won't know that until shortly before free agency starts. And it feels like there's a little musical chairs going on with this team. There are a lot of contracts, and some of them have coincidentally had their trade protections drop. Jared Spurgeon, as of this year, drops to a 10-team modified no trade. Jonas Brodin does not have trade protection after this season. Jake Middleton does. He has a no move, and then it goes to a 15-team no trade in the final few years of his deal. But some of the others, Joel Eriksson Ek has both a no move and a modified no trade. Marcus Foligno goes down to a 15-team no trade in 2026-2027. Ryan Hartman moves to a 15-team no trade next season. Some of these trade protections are starting to move in the movable direction. Gary Bettman's about to give us another ongoing $15 million a year cap hit until the X gets renovated. And I said this with the whole long-term injured reserve situation. If the Wild would go the Vegas or Tampa Bay route, 100% that the NHL would step in and say, hey, you guys are playing against the rules. You can't do this. Because that's just how it works. Other teams have gotten away with it for years, and the Wild would try it for the first time, and Gary Bettman would be like, nope, we're going to sanction that. That's just how this works. It's dumb and it's stupid, and I hate it. But that's why the Wild don't do it. That's why Bill Guerin doesn't do it, because he knows full well that he's going to be the one that gets stuck with the punishment. So that's why Kirill Kaprizov was so vocally deemed that this is not a season-ending injury, that he'll be returning, is because had that not been said, Gary Bettman would be like, I'm on to you. I'm on to you and your fishiness. Because what other league penalizes a team while contracts are in, while they're going on, and says, hey, we're not going to allow teams to do this anymore, starting with you guys in these contracts that are already in progress. They'd call over Wes McCauley to shout at Bill Guerin, you can't do that. This is a great point by Dylan, too. It was nice to see the Wild make a real press release instead of just being day-to-day for 3 weeks. They really had no choice because they already did that. Remember after Christmas, remember how blindsided I was after the Christmas break when the news came out that Kirill was going to be out of the lineup because he was a little banged up, and how that just came out of nowhere? Like, what? Well, that was the game after Christmas, and here we are a month later. Now, I fully believe that the team wanted to see if he was able to gut through it. I think he wanted to see if he could, because I do believe that there was no chance of further injury. But it just didn't work out. And a guy playing at any player playing at 60% is not worth having in the lineup at that diminished state. So here we are. This is how the Wild are going to have to win their games in the meantime. It's playing good old-fashioned team hockey. Good defense, good goaltending, and timely scoring up and down the lineup. If they can hit all of those things, if they can check those boxes, then, to quote The Mandalorian, this is the way. Man, nailed that. Didn't even think about that until like 60 seconds ago, and absolutely stuck the landing. The Wild play tomorrow against the Montreal Canadiens. And Marc-Andre Fleury in net in his final game in Montreal. It's going to be emotional. I'm already emotional talking about it. But make no mistake, this is a Montreal team that is pesky. They've got some real good offensive weapons. Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, amongst others. The Wild are going to need to really keep their eyes on, especially Cole Caulfield. He's got 25 goals already. Good Lord. But Montreal has lost 3 in a row. Their defense isn't great, but don't take Montreal lightly is all I'm saying. They're pretty good. We'll have more of a formal preview of the game for you tomorrow, as well as John Hines' 3 things. I'm going to be interested to see if Hines talks about the zone exits, because that was noticeable tonight. And that's, I think, a big reason as to why the Wild picked up a win here this evening. But that's all I got for tonight. Appreciate everybody tuning in to yet another Locked On Wild postcast, as the Wild will take on Goal Caulfield tomorrow against Montreal. We'll have you covered for that game as well. So you can tune in for another Locked On Wild postcast coming up here tomorrow night, plus episodes tomorrow. We got you covered all day long here at Locked On Wild. So before you go, smash that like button and enjoy the rest of your night as the Minnesota Wild pick up a 3-1 win over Toronto on the road. And we'll be back at you tomorrow, right here on Locked On Wild.